What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Wednesday show, gang. Happy hump day. Most of the way to the weekend, as we usually celebrate around here Wednesday evening, basically the start of the weekend. So congrats on making it. Got Cujo here, Colin Sutherland's here, Lone Wolf, Andy Melman's here. Good group to start things off. Hopefully everybody's week is going well. Hopefully everybody's Wednesday is going pretty well. Little early slate action going on. Sounds like Aaron Nola's not going to get a win bonus, according to Colin. That sucks. Like Nola in that spot. I actually went with, I forget who. I have a late starting lineup. I just threw one in, just messing around earlier today. What do I have? No, that's tonight. I went with Gavin Stone for the discount on FanDuel. Looks like my Schwarber and Sosa pairing hasn't done anything at all. Dodgers are just getting started. And then I've got some Rangers. I went with like a 3-3-2 Rangers, Dodgers, Schwarber, Sosa, and Gavin Stone. Gavin Stone looks like he's off to a good start. That Miami lineup is kind of like Chicago. I think we're going to be able to target that for a lot of the season this year going forward. But anyway, we've got an interesting 7-gamer on both sites. If you work over at Fantasy Labs, I'd like to correct your DraftKings page. It is a 7-gamer on DraftKings. They're not including the second game of the Texas-Oakland doubleheader. Thank you for scaring me at the last possible moment before the show by having it listed as an 8-gamer on DraftKings. I was scrambling around. I saw that, and I was like, oh, shit, I missed that earlier. And I was scrambling, and I threw salaries in here, and I was getting the pitching together, and I was like, wait a minute. Let me actually check that on DraftKings. Because when I dropped it in, nothing came up for salaries on DraftKings. And yeah, that was not actually there. Aaron Davis says if they start that Mets Cards game, that will be interesting to see the ownership. Yeah, it sounds like that one's just getting wrecked by weather right now. I saw a thing that was saying the Cards were telling the fans to go inside and shelter in the tunnels and everything. So it doesn't sound like a good day. Sounds like one of those Midwestern-y weather kind of days. Beautiful day here in the New York area. Good day for baseball, good day for hitting. Might be another day where we see either the Yanks or the Astros, or both, break out a little bit. Yanks obviously helped win the slate last night. We also had some, what did we have last night? Most of the pitchers came through. Most of the guys that we were looking at, I think, came through. We had the one that was critical was Kyle Harrison for that value price on DraftKings. Ended up succeeding. Shut down the Rockies, had a very successful start. So that one worked out. Our Rockies angle into the slate didn't work out. But a lot of the other things that we touched on and a lot of the upper-end pitching projections I felt like held up pretty well. But anyway, hopefully some of you guys out there had a good day. Hopefully we're looking forward to this one. We've got a lot of the lineups in for today. Got an interesting-looking board with some decent run totals. The game out in Colorado just at 9.5, so we don't have a 6-run team. We've only got, we peak at 5.4. We've got a few teams in the 5s. We've got some other teams solidly in the mid-4s. So it's a good-looking board. Arizona at Cincinnati. Jordan Montgomery going for Arizona. Like him a lot, but typically more as a solid MLB pitcher than a DFS pitcher. Graham Ashcraft going for the Reds. Kind of like targeting the Diamondbacks bats on the other side of that one. Dead even in Vegas. 9-run total, 4.55 for each team. The Orioles at the Nationals. Kyle Bradish. Almost did it. Kyle Bradish. We can get a Bradish count going. Kyle Bradish going for the Orioles, taking on the Nats. 8-run total there, 4.58 implied total for the Orioles side, kind of like their bats. 3.51 on the Nationals side. Definitely a gettable spot. The White Sox and the Rays. Aaron Savali really has been scuffling, but he is a good pitcher. Rays are heavily favored. The White Sox are absolutely atrocious. We're going to keep on rolling those dice and targeting them. More often than not, it's going to work out. It's just Savali's been really bad over his last handful of starts. So playing with a little bit of fire there, maybe. But I still believe in the pitcher wholeheartedly. 3.33 implied total for the White Sox. So does Vegas. 5.29 implied total for the Rays side of that one. Astros at the Yanks. Carlos Rodon going for the Yankees. Spencer Arrighetti looking very gettable going for the Astros. 9.5 run total equals the total in Coors Field. Yanks fairly heavily favored. 4.33 implied total for the Astros. 5.23 for the Yankees side. Yanks showing some power on the board again. But the Astros, never a team to shy away from stacking even against a pitcher like Rodon. They could absolutely get to him. There's some very sturdy bats. As we always talk about, their two key lefties hit lefties very well. So no real worries about that in Yankee Stadium. Red Sox at the Braves. Kind of an interesting one. 3.57 implied total for the Red Sox. 5.04 for the Braves. Nick Pivetta back starting for the Red Sox. We'll see how deep into the game he's able to pitch. On the Braves side, it's Chris Sale. He's got the Red Sox checked down to a similar number as the White Sox. Looks like a pretty good spot for pitching for Chris Sale. The Mariners and the Twins. Mariners rolling with George Kirby. He's got the Twins relegated to 4.07. Pretty even up game. Both teams on the minus side with an 8-run total. Mariners drawing a 4.01 implied total against Chris Paddock. He looks kind of interesting. It's a little bit low faith, but he's very cheap. There are, as we've seen, a lot of strikeouts. Paddock, once upon a time, was supposed to be a very good pitcher, and he's been kind of derailed by injuries and everything. But I think it's maybe a spot we can roll the dice on, given the value there. And then the last one's a Coors Field game. So that'll be fun. 5.43 implied total for the Giants. 4.19 for the Rockies. The Rockies, fortunately, not really showing power or any real compelling reason to look at them today. So we won't have to go down that path. So this will be the day they go out and score 12 runs. But that's baseball. Get a look at the pitching board. Travis Wyndham saying Spencer Arrighetti looked solid in his last start, coming along a little bit, in my opinion. Yeah, we'll get to him. We'll take a look at everything. 6 strikeouts the last time out, gave up 2 earned, walked 3, 5 2/3, 4 hits allowed. That was against Cleveland. Getting 6 strikeouts against Cleveland is an accomplishment. Keeping that team to 4 hits is not bad. 4 earned runs against the Cubs at Wrigley the game before that. Struck out 7 in that one. Gave up a home run. That's the only home run he's given up. A couple of short starts to start the season. It wouldn't totally shock me if he's all right and kind of rounds into form, but it's just pitching in Yankee Stadium on a nice, warm, sunny day with the wind blowing out. Maybe not the right day to be targeting a pitcher who's just kind of rounding into form. He projects okay. I mean, 22 points on FanDuel at 73, 10.5 for 63 on the DraftKings slate. We're not far off value from some of these other bargain bin pitchers. It's just, I think I'd rather roll the dice on Chris Paddock, who I know can break off a pretty high-end game from time to time and is a major league caliber pitcher for sure, going up against that high strikeout Mariners lineup at 200 more. Jordan Hicks in Colorado is another story. I'd probably rather roll the dice on Arrighetti, but I don't know that you have to. You get maybe you go to Jordan Montgomery at 77. You get a pitcher like Kyle Bradish at 84. So there's a lot of different ways you could go. Even Savali at 88 is not like crazy overpriced considering the matchup. It's just maybe he's overpriced considering how bad he's been. But starting from the top, I think Chris Sale, wholly believable at the very top of the board, 10-5, 9-8 across sites. Highest projection on the board on both sites. Totally willing to buy in. Kyle Bradish, it's his second start back from the injury. That's the concern. He had the UCL issue, didn't get surgery, rehabbed it back into health, and had a good start. Went, 4 2/3 in the first outing. It was against the Yanks. He faced 21 hitters, struck out 5, walked 2, gave up just 1 earned on 4 hits. The only question I have is the depth. If he's not getting 6, we probably fall a little bit short of this projection. But they haven't said that he's going to be limited. I think the pitch count should be all right. I think he can track to that number. It's just how efficient he is against a very gettable Nationals team. I left it alone. I didn't want to really weigh it down by artificially limiting the innings, but I could definitely see him coming out after 5, just with some concerns, lingering about the elbow. If he's pitching really well, just breezes through that lineup, though, 6th inning is probably in play. Savali at 85, it's just a very fair price on both sides, particularly 85 on FanDuel. There's no reason that Savali shouldn't be able to breeze through this team, book 6 clean innings, handful of strikeouts, and a good game, other than that he hasn't been able to do that since April 16th. His last 3 starts have been total meltdowns. Not sure if something's going on. Might be worth looking at. Let me pull it up. We'll talk about it when we get to that game, but let me pull it up so we're ready. So this is another spot where I just kind of left the projection alone. I'm not just going to overreact to a couple bad starts unless we can identify, hey, something is really, really up here. George Kirby, just a terrific pitcher. Decent opportunity to limit that Twins team, 9,500, 9,000. I think it's totally fair. He projects out right where he should. Just, not the easiest pushover matchup with the way that the Twins have been scoring runs of late. Pivetta, I think that one might be a shorter start as well. I've got it in there as a limited start. I think I went 5.25 or something like that. The way that it runs on whole numbers, not thirds of an inning. But I think that's what I gave him. 8,100, 8,700 across sites. He's got the upside, but it's the Braves, and with potentially a short start in his first outing back, maybe it's not really the best spot to target, and he doesn't really project all that differently from a lot of these options. Jordan Montgomery at Cincinnati, not the best ballpark situation, but there are definitely strikeouts in that lineup. Paddock I do like for the value. I think there's a lot of upside there. Rodon, I wouldn't shy away from playing some shares of Carlos Rodon, just because there is a ceiling there, and it's a fair price, 8,679. He's really only had one rough start all year. The Astros are very good. Like I said, I would probably hedge it with some positions on the other side if I took a big Carlos Rodon position. But I think he's at least in play. Hicks, I just don't want to tangle with Coors Field, I don't think. The price is all right to do it a few times if you're a believer on DraftKings. He hasn't given up much power, for one thing, severely limiting the Rockies' numbers in the home run model. So maybe there's some success, and we've seen less talented pitchers or equally talented pitchers beat this team in Coors Field this year. Mitchell Parker, I think he's kind of an interesting pitcher. I just don't love the 8,500 price on DraftKings. I wish that was cheaper. I'd be maybe talking about if it was in the 7s. And I don't love the matchup against the Orioles. They're just really, really good. So it's maybe an avoidable spot. 8,000, a limited dart throw on FanDuel. I just expect him to get beat. So it's really probably not the spot. We talked about Arrighetti again already, but again, the price is kind of right if you want to roll some value dice. It's not that far off of the other value options. Ashcraft against Arizona is kind of a no in that Cincinnati ballpark. Flexen and Lambert pretty much knows for me. Flexen's very, very cheap, and he's succeeded a little bit, and that Rays lineup hasn't been great. So I could maybe see getting away with that one as just a total dice throw. It's simultaneously kind of a deep board if you're willing to take some gambles on these guys, and it's kind of a really short board, just with the real quality up at the top, even with question marks about one of them. Just a 7 gamer, we can kind of take our time. Yeah, Trav, I think that's the right move. He's cheap enough that you can roll those dice, and you give it a whirl in a few lineups, and if it doesn't get there, presumably, at least one or two of your other lineups are going to have Yankees in them. If you do that and take that position, is definitely a spot to hedge. Because the Yanks, typically the way that offense is going to work is there'll be a lot of opportunities with guys on base, and they either do or don't hit the key home runs. That's just how they work. So they pop for big scores or they pop for limited scores. The days where they're going to hang just like 4 runs on them are fewer, oddly. Michael Knack, what's going on? What's cracking? Trey's here. Hope your afternoon's going well too, Trey. Mine's been good. No article today. Took it a little bit slower today. Just got the projections up. That thing is it's a beast to write. It's several hours worth of sitting here writing. I love doing it because then I'm way into the slate by the time we do the shows and everything. But 2 in a row typically will take the wind out of me a little bit. And we've got the early slate tomorrow, I think. Either way, they're going to have very short slates tomorrow. So we'll knock something out for tomorrow. And then Friday and then into the weekend. By the way, quick note. It'll only affect probably the end of next week and maybe the beginning of the following. I got to check what the actual schedule is. But I'll be traveling to Texas for my cousin's wedding. I presumably will still be able to put up projections over the weekend like I typically do. We haven't been doing shows over the weekend anyway. But just I'll keep everybody well informed next week as we go through it. But just a early heads up. So first game up. As I mentioned, I kind of like the looks of the Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll maybe coming back to life a little bit, back up to the top spot in the lineup. This is the confirmed version of the lineup. They're going up against Graham Ashcraft, who isn't terrible. His effective numbers, Stuff Plus likes him a little bit. I just think he's somewhat gettable here. He keeps the ball to a decent average launch angle so far this year, was pretty successful at doing that last year, but still did give up a little bit of home run upside on not the worst premium contact numbers. This year, the premium contact numbers have been up a little bit. The hard hits, especially the exit velo a little bit. Still keeping the ball mostly to a limited launch, but when he slips and allows a little bit of fly ball trajectory there, it looks like he is getting hit a little bit hard for home run upside. 20.3% strikeouts on a 10.5% swing, 26.1% CSW. Again, certainly a okay pitcher. 4 strikeouts last game, 2 walks, just 2 runs, both of them unearned on 5 hits in 6 against San Diego at San Diego. Struck out 3 against the Rangers, went 6 1/3, and that one gave up a home run and 7 hits, but only that 1 earned run. Rough one against the Angels in 5 innings, struck out 4, walked 3, gave up a homer, 5 earned, 5 hits. There's just a lot of hits in play. There's a lot of balls in play. It's a fairly low strikeout rate. His strikeout high for the season is 8. He did that against the White Sox. So we kind of maybe discount that a little bit. He also got 6 against the Brewers. There's been 4, 3, and 4 each of the last 3. I don't know. A middling starter, I would say. At 8,800, I just don't think he really fits well. 8,300, same thing on DraftKings. He doesn't really hit the top of the board. He doesn't really fall into the bargain bin. He's just kind of lost in the middle. And if you want to use a very good Diamondbacks lineup that doesn't strike out very much, that knows how to draw some walks, at least on the top end, that does have power, plus this ballpark, I think those break the tie pretty cleanly. So really not on the Ashcraft train here. And it's kind of similar for Jordan Montgomery. At 77, he's at least effectively value priced. 8,400, same thing on FanDuel. He does fall into like the middle of the board. I think he's very playable, and there are strikeouts for him here. It's just Montgomery's a very low strikeout pitcher most of the time. He spiked a little bit of additional strikeout upside down the stretch last year. Ended up at 21.4% last year, 21.8% the year before, but had a few better strikeout games after getting out of New York. It's just, where do we see him in the long term, even against a team like this? So far this year, a 6-inning start, a 7-inning start. He struck out 3, struck out 4 in the next game. That was against at San Francisco and at St. Louis. And then a bit of a clunker the last time out. That was against the Dodgers, so, give and take. But 1 strikeout, 3 walks, gave up 2 home runs, 6 earned runs on 6 hits. Obviously, that's not your typical Jordan Montgomery start. Again, he is very good and just more of a real-life pitcher. So I think the opportunity for him in terms of the ceiling is kind of limited. I don't think the projection is necessarily far off. It's just that's probably about where we land, and we do have a somewhat relatively big basement to fall into with a not great but frisky and talented Reds lineup on the other side, plus the ballpark. So I just think, especially at the FanDuel price, he's just kind of a mid-level option. Not one to over-prioritize, but if you have some shares, 8-10% across 150 lineups is certainly fine. I probably like Paddock better for the upside for a cheaper price. I wouldn't say I like Pivetta better, but I do like all 3 of these, or all 4 of those guys better. Rodon would be a tough call. Since he's 200 more on FanDuel, I'd probably lean Montgomery for the strikeout upside that Rodon really won't have against the Astros. Same thing on FanDuel. So that's right where he falls. It's like him, Rodon, right in that level, and maybe Paddock in that same conversation for less. So playable, but not really a priority. On the season, just 11.9% strikeouts, a little bit below average by stuff. Plus, he's given up some home runs in the very short sample. But we did see depth in the first 2 starts when he was back in the show. So I don't really think there's any kind of issue with innings or anything like that. I think if he's going well, 7 innings is definitely on the table. That's just who Jordan Montgomery is. So you could get that high-end game from him. It's not off the table, which is why I think it's appropriate to maybe throw a few dice at it. Not a total dart throw, but not a priority. If you do take any shares of Graham Ashcraft, I would definitely hedge that with Diamondbacks on the other side. If you take shares of Jordan Montgomery, I think it's less of a priority to hedge with the Reds. Just you're taking the more talented of the 2 pitchers, I think. But absolutely, you can hedge with the Reds, again, given the ballpark and some of the skills. And honestly, there's some pretty low prices in this lineup, too. Ellie is the only really expensive player, 6,100, 4,500. He's got 8 home runs, 19 stolen bases, a 270 ISO, a 150 WRC+. He's just been ridiculous. The strikeouts are still high, but the walks are 4 points higher, 4.5 points higher this year. He's been crushing the ball when he makes contact with it. He's turning into the superstar that we expected. So happy to take shares of Ellie. And then you're bolting him together with players like Jonathan India from the top spot. At least he's getting on at a 341 clip. His WRC plus should be a little bit higher, honestly. He's not hitting for much average. He hasn't driven the ball really at all, just 3.6% barrels, 31% hard hits, a 324 slug. Encarnacion Strand got put on the IL. So we lose a power bat out of the middle of the lineup that's been mostly scuffling anyway. Spencer Steer, 5,000, 3,400. He's down to 240, 347, 416. But again, at least the on base is still solid. The WRC plus is 16% better than average. He's stolen 9 bases, hit 4 home runs. Tyler Stevenson, I tell you what, if you're looking for a catcher for just a cheap price, one-off type catcher, I think you could do worse than that spot, considering he's hitting cleanup in this stadium at 3,800. It's not terrible. He's got a little bit of pop. He's got 200 ISO, 4 home runs over 88 plate appearances. He's been making extreme contact in when he's put bat on ball. 21.1% barrels, 57.9% hard hits. That's probably like his 4 hits and then like 3 solidly hit line drives, and that's like all the bat, and then a few fly out batted ball events. But yeah, that is pretty extremely high. You can see it's way, way higher than his numbers from last year, 7.6% and 43.2%. Even those, though, were respectable enough. He's able to hit home runs from time to time. 13 last year and 517. Just 6 the year before, but he had a better triple slash in a small sample. So not a bad hitting catcher. Santiago Espinal, 3,000, 2,500, at least triple position eligible on FanDuel. Really hasn't done much this year. 4 stolen bases, a 27 WRC plus. I tell you what, looking at this lineup again, there might be a little bit of a bump to Jordan Montgomery's quality. This is a really bad version of the Cincinnati lineup. Stuart Fairchild at 28-25. He's well below the Mendoza line in 74 plate appearances, at 38 WRC plus, over 116 plate appearances. Jimmy Lario hasn't done anything that they're paying him for. 184, 267, 350. He's hit 3 home runs, 72 WRC plus. TJ Friedl is a good player. 4 plate appearances back from injury. Last year he hit 18 home runs, stole 27 bases. Kind of a frisky bat from the bottom of the lineup. Probably should be hitting like here. I don't really understand. Maybe it's just the lefty-lefty of it. But Friedel's probably, even lefty-lefty, I would think better than Santiago Espinal in that spot. Maybe a good player to keep in mind there, but again, probably not the spot for that many shares of Reds. Luke Maile, a second catcher in the lineup, a lot more skippable in the 9th spot. A little bit of infrequent pop from him, 6 home runs and 199 last year. Really low-end Reds lineup, though. I like 1, 2, maybe 3, and then TJ Friedl. It's pretty bad. Diamondbacks lineup is a lot better. Like I was saying, Corbin Carroll back in the leadoff spot, was successful there yesterday. He's strung together a handful of games where he's gotten at least 1 hit and is looking a little bit more like himself. 2 home runs, 8 steals. Still a lot of work to be done to pull the WRC plus together. The average is still at 211. The on base is only at 300. He's way, way behind where he's supposed to be. But at least there's signs of life, and we're back into a good spot in the lineup. And now we're only paying $4,800, $3,000 for him. So he's at a discount. Pretty extreme discount, given what he did last year with the 54 steals, the 25 home runs, the 221 ISO, and so on and so forth. Ketel Marte, priced down a little bit, $4,900, $3,500. Not really sure why. He's got 7 home runs. He's got a 146 WRC plus, a 232 ISO, slashing 303, 356, 535. Striking out 18.1% of the time, drawing 8.8% walks. The walks are down a little bit. The strikeouts are up a little bit, but that's certainly not why his price is down. He's mashing the ball when he makes contact, 11.1% barrels, 50.4% hard hits. Works for me. Jock Peterson, I like him in the 3rd spot there. I actually had him in the 5. These guys switched spots since the original version of the lineup, but I like Jock a lot. 4,000, 2,800. Good spot in the lineup. 3 home runs on the season, a 218 ISO, 163 WRC plus over 98. We know that Jock Peterson is a left-handed power bat over time, and he's doing interesting things at the plate in the small sample this year. We're not at 235 on the front end, for example. It's a small sample, but it's looking more like this year maybe. All right, 2022, he hit 274, 353, 521. 23 home runs and 433 plate appearances. So far, this is looking more like that than it is like this. But just a good lefty bat for a very fair price against this pitcher in this ballpark. Christian Walker, the home run pick of the day at 7.99. That came down a little bit. I think the run total lowered by a half a run since I did the original numbers this morning. 7 home runs on the season for Walker. striking out 22.6% of the time. This was like 27% like 2 weeks ago. He's really improving that rapidly, getting it back down where it's supposed to be. He's drawing more walks already this season. Another player is just mashing the ball when he makes contact. 271, 381, 465. Creating runs 43% better than average. Absolutely take it. Lourdes Gurriel, 234, 276, 387. The quality's definitely fallen out the bottom of the triple slash there over the last few weeks. 5 home runs, 2 steals. Been kind of stuck and declining a little bit. I like him to turn it back around. We're still not striking out much, not drawing that many walks, so he's putting a lot of balls in play. Still making decent contact at the plate, looking kind of like himself in terms of the premium contact. So I think the power will come around. I think the average will settle in, and it probably will end up looking like maybe this kind of a season, which is perfectly fine. Junior Suarez hasn't really been good. 2 home runs, a 100 ISO, a 73 WRC+, 145 plate appearances, lack of power, lack of general any quality, not really hitting the ball all that well, especially compared to years past. Striking out at a 28.3% clip, not great. Gabriel Moreno has been banged up over the last few days, scuffling along a little, 241, 340, 322. The on-base is still good. Should be able to boost his run creation back above average. Hasn't hit for power this season. No home runs. Not really making great contact at the plate. But I do think there's a lot of upside there for the 3,500, 2,600 across sites. Pevin Smith, 3,225. He's very cheap. Hasn't done much this year. A homer in 26 plate appearances. Last year, 7 homers in 228. Year before, 9 in 277. Was supposed to be better than he's been at the major league level. Never like the highest end prospect, but I think he was a top 100 once upon a time. And was supposed to have like a moderately good, like, 260, 270s type hit tool and, 20-ish, 20, 25 home run power. And we really haven't seen that guy. He is able to put bat on ball. He's not completely inept. It does get you a lefty bat for cheap late in the lineup. First base eligibility on FanDuel, but you're not skipping Christian Walker for him. You're not really playing them first base and util, so probably just considered an outfielder on both sides. No Blaze Alexander today. You get Kevin Newman at the bottom of the lineup. A mix and match piece at best. So, with a minor bump given the Reds lineup that he's going to be facing, Jordan Montgomery has become more of a yes. But again, just kind of in the middle at okay prices. The DraftKings price for Montgomery's talent is fine. That's effective enough. So that's become a yes. I still don't love the ballpark, but I think the talent is there. It's just a matter of whether he can find some additional strikeouts beyond what he's been doing, given how much this team can strike out. Graham Ashcraft, mostly a no for me. I just think the price is just an awkward fit in the middle. And if you're taking a pitcher from this game, like, I would just take cheaper Jordan Montgomery against the worst lineup. Diamondbacks bats are definitely a yes for me against Ashcraft. Reds bats, really not so much. Not even as a hedge. It doesn't look great. It's a weak version of the lineup. There's really only 2 players that I really like in the lineup. Call it 3 if we're including Friedel all the way at the bottom and a lefty-lefty. The O's and the Nats. Let's see what you guys are talking about. AJ brings up a good point. Yeah, there is a little bit of weather potentially for an in-game delay. I appreciate that, AJ. I'd forgotten to mention the weather. Yeah, a little bit of weather coming in Cincinnati, so we might get the in-game delay. We'll see whether it's a delay that ruins the game, but yeah, something to keep in mind, and definitely something that can impact the pitching. So that'll bring me back to a push Jordan Montgomery back into like the just kind of in the middle and don't really need him lower priority. That balances out the Reds lineup because yeah, you might get a 4-inning start and then game PPD'd. Mets and the Cards went PPD. Makes sense. Art Stanton saying on Seinfeld, "See, you got some new hair up top there, looking pretty good." Brian De La Cruz home run. He's been mashing. He hit one yesterday too. Orioles, Nationals. Kyle Bradish, 8,400, 9,200. Projects out really well. Like I said, the only limitation here would be the innings. In the first start back, he went 4 2/3. He struck out 5 Yankees. He gave up 1 earned run, 4 hits. He faced 21 hitters, walked 2. If he can pitch efficiently, I think 5 innings was right there for him in that game against the Yanks. So just throwing him out there, if he's pitching a little bit more efficiently, throwing him out there for one additional inning. I think on a pitch count, we're right there. So six to me is not off the table. It's just if there's a concern, that's what it is. I think that is 100% baked into that 8,400 price on DraftKings. Full blown, totally healthy. No questions about the depth. Bradish is a $9,500 pitcher against this Nationals lineup, or $9,200, somewhere around there. So I think you're getting a discount on him on DraftKings. You're probably getting a slight discount on him on FanDuel too. High-end pitcher. We saw him succeed throughout last year. 168 2/3 over 30 starts last year. He put up a 25% strikeout rate. Terrific 2.83 ERA with a 3.52 xFIP that doesn't really betray it that much. Very good at keeping the ball down, 6.6 degree average launch. A little bit of premium contact, but like we see, and we went the other way when we were talking about Graham Ashcraft a little bit, so it's a little bit of a cheat, but you guys know we do that back and forth. When you're keeping the ball down like this, we don't worry quite as much about the premium contact. He managed to keep it to a 2.09% home run rate. Didn't give up a home run in that first game against the Yanks. Year before, as he was just finding his form, it was a little bit more problematic. You could see the launch angle was a little bit higher, led to a couple more home runs, but it's really just happenstance between this number and that number. 21.8% strikeout rate, walked 9%, was able to cut that down to 6% last year, 6.6%. So made some big strides from 22 to 23 and was able to overcome a UCL injury that was supposed to keep him out for the season. So we will see what we get going forward. But as long as he's on the mound, especially against a team like the Nats, I think it's kind of interesting. Nats at oops, not that one. I was like, wait a minute, that's high. 3.51 implied total, one of the lower end teams on the board. White Sox at 3.33, Red Sox at 3.56, and the Nats at 3.51. So definitely targetable. I think it's easy enough to get there. He's not cheap enough to make it and get to killer stack, and Kyle Bradish on FanDuel. Maybe a little bit more so on DK, where I think he does fit in alongside one of those high-end pitchers. You're probably going to get some value bats into one of those stacks, but I think there's more navigable paths to him being a value play on DraftKings, where he's more just you're buying a high-end starter for a fair price on FanDuel, and then you got to pay down a little bit with some bats. FanDuel, Paddock was the one that worked pretty well as a value pitcher. On the other side of this one, Mitchell Parker, I mentioned he's pitching well. 2.53 ERA and a 3.11 xFIP over his 4 starts, 21 1/3, 22.1% strikeout rate, just walked 4.7%. Tidy little 1.08 whip. Not generating many swinging strikes, not a good CSW. Stuff Plus doesn't love his arsenal. He's given up some hard hits and just under 10 degrees of average launch, but not that many barrels so far. Again, very, very small sample size. Hasn't given up a home run yet. What I kind of like is some of that success came against reasonably good lineups. 3 out of his 4 starts were against tough opponents. On the 27th, he faced the Miami Marlins in Miami. He struck out just 2. We walked 2. He gave up an earned run on 6 hits. Went just 4 in that one. The game after that, the most recent start on the 2nd, at Texas Rangers, he went 5 1/3. He struck out 5, walked 2. He gave up 3 earned runs, 6 hits, but if he had managed to get 2 more outs, we'd been looking at a quality start. Didn't get the win because his team sucks. In fact, he's yet to get a win. Went 7 innings against Houston before that Miami game. Struck out 8, walked 0, no earned runs. 7 shutout innings, gave up just 3 hits, faced 24 Astros. First game of the season. Oh, I'm sorry, he did get wins. He got a win in that game, and he got a win in the Dodgers game. Faced the Dodgers in the first game of the season. Spoiler. 4 strikeouts in that one. 0 walks, 2 earned runs, 4 hits. So I didn't book the quality start there, but he did book the win. So I think he's good. It's just, do you want to tangle with him with another good team on the other side? How many times are we going to be able to hold that up? We're not talking about dominant strikeout stuff. Spiked 1 good strikeout game in those 4. There's a lot of really good bats on that Orioles lineup that are kind of rolling. There's a couple that are struggling. Like, I'm maybe a little surprised to see Colton Cowser lefty with all his struggles over the last few weeks. You get James McCann in there, dual catcher configuration. Gunner, no issues at the top of the lineup. A lot of righties and a couple switch hitters in there. They just align really, really well against him. If he was a little bit cheaper, if he was in the 7s again on DraftKings, maybe a little bit more playable. 8,000 on FanDuel, I don't think we really need him. I think you can take some shares of the Orioles on the other side. They project well enough. Gunnar Henderson has 10 home runs already this season, 6 stolen bases, a 281 ISO. He's created runs 52% better than average. Adley Rutschman, top catcher in baseball, 322, 359, 469. Creating runs 40% better than average. He's hit 5 home runs, 18.3% strikeouts. Doesn't really walk at a huge clip so far this year. Last year that was a little bit better. Struck out a little less, walked a little bit more. I expect that'll probably normalize at least back toward this direction. I don't think it'll get worse. But a lot of balls in play at worse, and he's hitting the ball really hard when he makes contact. Ryan Mountcastle, just 4,700, 3,400 across sites, despite being at 280, 328, 472. He's got a 192 ISO. He's created runs 29% better than average. He's hit 5 home runs, 11.6% barrels, and 46.3% hard hits. Ryan Mountcastle is a little bit cheap for his quality, especially against the lefty. Santander, 4,200, 3,200. Another premium power bat. He's bounced along a little bit this season, but he's above average for run creation. He's got a 205 ISO. It's just the average and the on base that are a little bit off kilter. 5 home runs already. Not making great contact. That's off a little bit too. 10.2% barrels, 46.1% hard hits last year. Similar the year before, down to just 4.9 and 32.4. That's a big dip. Jordan Westberg's been good. Premium contact galore. Striking out just 19.7% of the time. 6 home runs, 4 steals, 221 ISO with a 142 WRC plus so far. He's been absolutely killing it for a guy that was definitely a prospect. Broke camp with the team instead of Jackson Holiday. Fought off other contenders for playing time. Has been terrific. Jackson Holiday came and went. Easton Kierstad came and went. Westberg's been holding down this job. He's hitting 5th, putting up good numbers. Triple position eligible for just 3,500 on, well, not just. Triple position eligible for 3,500 on FanDuel, second most expensive player on the FanDuel slate, or on the Orioles on the FanDuel slate. 4,800 second and third base on DraftKings. Jorge Mateo isn't completely uninteresting. He plays 3 positions on FanDuel. He's just a second baseman for 3,000 on DraftKings. At the very least, that's the right position to put him in. I'd rather have him at second than short or the outfield out of the 3. He's very cheap. He does provide odd counting stats from time to time. In 59 plate appearances this year, he's been effective. 2 home runs, 5 steals, 226 ISO. He's created runs 21% better than average for whatever it's worth. We saw him have a killer April last year and then completely vanish. 7 home runs and 32 steals. Most of those came in the month of April. Over 350 total plate appearances. He was at somewhere around 130 or so with those kind of numbers, and then everything fell apart. The average in the on base completely died. WRC plus went way negative. ISO fell apart. But capable of stringing together a good game here and there. Cowser at 46.29 does have major power upside. He's hit 6 home runs. He's down to 267, 343, 556, still a 289 ISO, creating runs 55% better than average, but has been pretty rough over the past few weeks. Just a lot of numbers from his really, really hot start still lingering. But definitely playable, definitely a high-end player that I expect to come around. Could be a good spot to do it. McCann, always good for cheap righty pokes at a lefty pitcher. From the catcher spot, 2,600, 25, a playable part. Nobody to really prioritize. Cedric Mullins, definitely playable from the bottom of the lineup if you're looking for a cheap way to turn things over. 6 home runs, 6 steals. Probably go 22 plus in both categories this year. Former 30-30 guy, as I mention, I think, every time I talk about Cedric Mullins. Nationals lineup, a lot lower priority. I don't think it's really even much of a hedge position. Got a lot of faith in the pitcher on the other side. If you are hedging, Jacob Young makes for a good starting option. C.J. Abrams is kind of obvious in the second spot in the lineup. Over 90 plate appearances, Young has stolen 12 bases. He's created runs 16% better than average. 364 on base. We're just looking for him to get on base, correlate a little bit. Abrams for 6,000, 4,100 is a star. 7 homers, 8 steals, creating runs 45% better than average. Mashing, 9.4% barrels. Well, actually, the premium contact hasn't been as good as I thought. It's a little bit of a dip since the last time I looked at it. But still, 7 homers, a 275 ISO. So still, the results for power are definitely there. Luis Garcia having the season of his life so far. 330, 385, 500, 3 home runs, 7 stolen bases, a 153 WRC plus, making killer contact. Just 3,600, 3,000 across sites. If you're going to the Nats, he's their 3-hitter. I think he's definitely playable. Senzel, 3,533, showing a little bit of power. 5 home runs at 262 ISO this year. 11.4% barrels, but just 31.8% hard hits. Those don't go really well together. Looks probably more like we're going to dip back to this as the sample grows. But for right now, at the pricing, hitting 4th in the lineup, another guy who's perfectly playable. Jesse Winker down to 263, 376, 432 on base is still solid. WRC plus is still good. 4 homers, 4 steals, capable of hitting one out of the park. Started the season strong, but has kind of cooled and just settled into being an okay hitter. Lefty bat for a fair price is fine. If you're stacking this team, Winker's in the group of priority hitters. Joey Meneses hasn't really been good. No home runs still. .034 ISO, 62 WRC plus. Keibert Ruiz, a lot of balls in play, but hasn't really driven the ball this year. Hasn't really done much of anything this year in 76 opportunities. 14 WRC plus. Does have 2 home runs. Eddie Rosario, just 2 home runs, a 125, 184, 225 triple slash. Maybe it's time to quit on Eddie Rosario. If you're the Nats, maybe go to a player that you can actually develop into a major league player. Last year, Rosario hit 21 home runs, but he's been lost at the plate, and there's just no purpose in having him on this team. It just doesn't make sense. Trey Lipscomb, 3,000, 2,700. Minor option at the bottom of the lineup that we don't really want to stack. So the Orioles are a yes. Kyle Bradish is a yes. Bradish. The Nats, pretty much a no. And Mitchell Parker, I just don't really love the matchup for the price. He has succeeded against similarly talented teams. It wouldn't shock me if he put up a good overall start, but not like a slate winner. I think that's probably what we're looking at as the upside for Parker here. Flexen and Savale. Yeah, Trey brings it up. Was anyone else watching MLB Network when the host said Yamamoto had a no-hitter alert before the game in the first pitch? Yeah. Yeah, whoever the idiot announcer was for that Dodgers game last night literally started the game before the first pitch by throwing up the MLB Network no-hitter alert. Whatever the chime is. And Jazz Chisholm came up as they were talking about it and blasted the first pitch over the right field wall for a home run. Ridiculous. Larry C. nailed it. Free James Wood. Absolutely. Kid is a masher. Buried in the minors for the Nats. Yeah, he should be in that Eddie Rosario spot. Trey says, as a health and fitness guy, I can't believe I agree with Kruk, but these guys need to go back to beer and hamburgers. He said, you can't pull fat. These guys are all just pulling too many muscles. That is a good Kruk line. Chris Flexen at 5,800, 6,500, just striking out 13.6% of opposing hitters. The lowest stuff plus rating I think we've seen all season at 51.67. Again, 100 is league average. He's just up there throwing batting practice and getting away with a 4.85 ERA, but a 5.34 xFIP, so even worse than he's been. Walking 9.6%, finding no swinging strikes, throwing very few strikes, giving up some barrels, but not that many hard hits, soft in, soft out, but still a 4% home run rate so far. He got through 5 in his last start against the Twins. He gave up just 2 earned runs, gave up a homer, struck out 4. No earned runs over 5 against the Rays. That's a sad performance by the Rays. Just 1 earned run against the Twins and no earned runs over 4 against the Phillies in bulk relief appearances. It was a 4-inning appearance and a 2 1/3 inning appearance there. There's no real reason in my mind to go to Chris Flexen here. He's very, very cheap. So if you wanted to just mess with it and hope for 5 innings like he did to this Rays team on the 26th, maybe, but you're still only dealing with in that start. Let's say he replicates that start exactly. He did get you the win. He went 5, gave up just 2 hits, but he walked 3, struck out 2. At 5,800, is that slate winning? I have a hard time really seeing how that's necessarily slate winning or like had to have it type value. It could be a helpful spot, sure. But I don't know that it's like absolutely had to have it kind of slate winner. And that's a high end start from him. At best, I think you're buying like five clean innings with very few strikeouts. And I think this Rays team at any given point is going to kind of turn things around. There's just too many good hitters who are scuffling. Johnny Diaz at 228, 289, 290. That's not going to continue. 74 WRC plus, just a .062 ISO with 1 home run. Randy Arozarena at 152, 253, 311. 6 homers, 6 steals is fine, but just a 159 ISO, a 70 WRC plus. These two are way better than this. Harold Ramirez, 285, 299, 333, doing Harold Ramirez things. Everything looks pretty much in line. The hard hits are down a little bit so far, but only a $4,000, $2,900 option. He's just a line drive hitter. Not threatening, but a capable enough guy to put the ball in play with the amount of contact that Flexen gives up. Isaac Paredes, just an 15.8% strikeout rate so far this year, drawing a fair amount of walks. This is also a mismatch, these low strikeout rate guys with the low strikeout rate from Flexen. And then some of these guys like Ahmed Rosario, 15.4% strikeouts, 2.4% walks. And Harold Ramirez, 18.9% strikeouts, 1.6% walks, and just a killer ability to put bat on ball. Both of those guys are capable of exploiting this much contact. The other guys can draw the walks. So just doesn't line up well for a successful Flexen day, even though he just got them, 12 days ago or whatever that is. Paredes has power, 8 home runs, 299, 384, 520, a 220 ISO. He's created runs 62% better than average. He's been right where he's expected to be. Last year, 250, 352, 488, a 238 ISO, 137 WRC plus, and 31 home runs. He's been their most successful bat this season. Ahmed Rosario's been good. Like I said, a lot of balls in play, a lot of bat on ball. Right now, he's at 308, 325, 433. He's creating runs 21% better than average over a growing sample. Johnny DeLuca in the lineup. 20 plate appearances. He has hit a home run, stolen 2 bases. He's creating runs 133% better than average in the tiny sample. Last year, cup of coffee, 45 plate appearances. He had 2 homers, stole a base. Jose Caballero, Jose Siri at the bottom of the lineup, and Alex Jackson at the bottom of the lineup. Jackson capable of driving the ball? No real major league sample to speak of. He's got a... I know he was on my radar for power at one point. I just want to pull it up. He's 28 now. Oh, maybe that was longer ago than I was thinking. Yeah, I guess it was. He did hit 12 AAA home runs in Milwaukee's system last year. Looks like he bounced between Milwaukee and Tampa Bay last year. So all told in AAA last year, actually, it was 16 home runs in like 248 plate appearances. But the year I was actually thinking of was all the way back at this point in 2019 at age 23. In AAA that year, he hit 28 home runs in 345 plate appearances for the Braves. But yeah, never really arrived. Maybe some oddball power if you're stacking up a bunch of Rays and you just want a cheapo catcher. If he was sitting a little bit higher, like if he was where DeLuca is, that would be maybe a sneaky, interesting one-off. For only 2,200, even at the 8th spot in the lineup, maybe you could get away with a little bit of a power play type one-off, just home run hunting. Not the strongest option in the world. Caballero has stolen 14 bases. Siri's stolen 6 bases. He's also hit 2 home runs. Between the two, Siri's probably the better overall player, but Caballero's outperforming him badly right now. It's mix and match parts down through the bottom of the Rays lineup. A lot of quality up at the top, even with these guys scuffling. For Aaron Savali, let's take a look at what's going on with Savali. Appears to be throwing his cutter a little bit less so far. Throwing the curve a little bit less also. What is he throwing more? It's mixing in a sweeper. 17.5% of that is broken off to a sweeper. Hasn't thrown his slider. Four-seamer's about the same. Splitter's non-existent. So it's really... He gave up like 10 percentage points of cutter usage and then like 3% of curveball usage to create a sweeper that he's using 17.5% of the time. That's been an effective pitch. 28.8% whiff rate. 206 average, 232 expected average against the pitch, 349 expected slug, 261 xWOBA against it. He's given up 1 home run on it, struck out 7. Sinker is coming in about the same. The 4-seamer is right about the same. Spin, same. Top of my head, just as I'm glancing at this, everything looks really, really similar. It's, you know, he mixed up the usage a little bit. Maybe that's throwing him off, just not throwing as many cutters as far as the timing and where he was finding success last year, but I'm not really sure that that's the case. It's actually getting more whiffs on that cutter now. xWOB was right in line with where it should be. He's given up a couple of home runs. Might just be a BABIP issue, honestly. He might just be getting unlucky. Like, really unlucky. Just looks like a lot of hits against a couple of these pitches. 311 opposing BABIP. I mean, that could be an indicator that something's not working, that he's tipping pitches. I'm not exactly sure. But there is, as far as the makeup of the pitches and like the way he's utilizing them, there's really not, outside of the fact that he's now throwing that sweeper and he just changed up the mix a little bit, the pitches look similar. But the results have been a mess. Over the last few starts, Civale hasn't completed the 5th inning. Most recently against the Mets, 4 2/3, he gave up 7 earned runs on 6 hits, struck out 5, walked 1, gave up 1 home run. Struck out just 3, no walks, gave up a homer, 6 earned on 8 hits in 4 1/3 at the lousy White Sox, who notably are his opponent again today. That was at Chicago. 4 2/3 against the Yanks, more forgivable, I guess. 5 strikeouts, but he walked 5, gave up 5 earned. No home runs in that game, oddly. 8 hits, though. Prior to that, he had been great. Well, not great, but he'd been good. 3 starts where he completed the 6th. Booked a quality start in each one of them. Struck out 8, gave up 3 earned on 5 hits against the Angels. Struck out 4, walked 1, gave up a homer. He also 2 of those 3 runs against the Angels were on home runs. Gave up a home run in each of the first 3 games. He's given up, or the first 4 games. He's given up at least 1 home run in all but one of his games. Again, oddly against the Yankees. But he was striking guys out and pitching fairly effectively before these weird blips over the last 3 starts. Overall, it still does a 6.14 ERA, but a 3.44 xFIP, which is obviously much, much better. He's still got a 31% CSW with a 10.4% swinging. He's striking out 24.5% of hitters. Last year, he was just at 23%, 24.1% the year before. What we liked about Civale jumping into this year was when he went to the Rays last season, in the last 10, 12 starts, whatever it was, his strikeout rate had jumped up to like 29%. And that's what we were seeing over those first 4 starts. It was 6 strikeouts, 8, 4, and 8 strikeouts. And then it dipped a little bit. It's 5, 3, and 5 over the last 3. But I still believe in the talent, and I absolutely love the matchup. And now that we're getting him at 88, 85, I think we can definitely roll with it. Unless something is actually definitely wrong, and maybe we'll find out if he goes kerplunk again tonight. Unless something's actually wrong, I believe in the pitcher, and I think there's upside here. He's going up against the worst lineup in baseball. 22.1% strikeout rate is okay. Tommy Pham's limiting strikeouts to just 17.1% in 41 plate appearances, but he was 22% in a more complete sample last year. Gavin Sheets is about this guy in terms of strikeouts. 18, 19% is typically normal. Andrew Vaughn is striking out a little bit more than he has in the past. Eloy Jimenez right about norm. Andrew Benintendi a little high. Paul DeJong high, but probably a little believable there. Martin Maldonado, also pretty believable. Braden Shoemaker was worse for strikeouts, but it's a small sample still this year. So it's probably right about in line with who they really are, that 22.1. I think it's a pretty gettable lineup, especially when you're talking about a 211 batting average for the 9-man, a 258 on base, a 327 slug, a 116 ISO, an average WRC plus of 66. Some of that is still a very small sample. It's kind of unfair, but it's fun to make fun of the White Sox. They're so bad. I do like Tommy Pham, just in a vacuum, not necessarily against Savali, but if you're looking for spots, you can maybe target Savali a little bit if you just believe that the struggles are real, or if you've read something that I haven't that does say that he's like tipping pitches or whatever. Then yeah, maybe you can get to some frisky White Sox. At the very least, Pham, Sheets, Vaughn, and Eloy Jimenez are interesting off the top. Those are major league caliber players. Sheets has been decent, 260, 350, 442, creating runs 27% better than average, 3 homers and a stolen base. Pham, in his 41 plate appearances since joining this disaster, is at 127 WRC+. He's got the 2 home runs, 205 ISO. Vaughn has been a letdown so far, 183, 241, 230, no homers, 0.48 ISO at 37 WRC+. Jimenez is very cheap for his upside. He's got 4 home runs, but just a 209, 266, 360 triple slash. Been more part of the problem than the solution, but he still does hit the ball very, very hard. Benintendi at an uncharacteristic 184, 215, 272. 3 home runs. No real power to speak of, mostly as a contact-oriented hitter, and if he's not doing that, he's pretty useless. Brian Ramos is cheap at 2,300, dead min at third base on FanDuel. Over 12 plate appearances, he's been okay for them. Maybe playable for the cheap price, but I don't love the positioning at third base. DeYoung, Shoemaker, Martin Maldonado, totally skippable at the bottom of the lineup. So Savali is a yes. Flexen is a no. Ray's bats, definitely on the board. Not a top priority, but easily playable, fairly priced. And White Sox bats really top end in just the contrarian hedge kind of a sense. Maybe you can grab a few shares. If you believe that Savali's actually broken, then maybe you can grab some more shares. For me, it's more skippable than that. You know you're bad when your 3-hitter has 0 home runs and a 183 average. Oops. Trey says Wood mashes in his MLB The Show franchise. Lone Wolf, I got the Reds at a 4.5 run total. Unless something changed. Yep. 9 run total for the game, minus 104 on both sides. 4.5 run total there, buddy. I'm not really down on the Reds. I don't actually know if you're even talking to me. There is weather in that game, like we talked about, and I just have a healthy respect for Jordan Montgomery as a real life pitcher. I think he's very good. So maybe a spot where the Reds go out and hang, 4.5 runs on Jordan Montgomery, and he doesn't have a great day. But I don't see him getting blown up. When I started the day, I said, "Ooh, the Reds are on the slate at a home in a home game," and then I pulled up the pitching and I said, "It's against Montgomery." That's just kind of where I landed for it. And that version of the lineup I really don't like too. It was really only a couple hitters. Let's go back. Short slate, we got time. And we're making good time already. It's only 4:30. It is a 6:40 start, by the way. So just like with no Encarnacion Strand, who I like a lot, you're really dealing with, a struggling Candelario, a mediocre Fairchild, a weak Santiago Espinal. This is an okay stretch. India has gotten some love from the DFS community over the years and has contributed some counting stats. But really, how good is Jonathan India? Right? I mean, we're not talking about a star here. So short of Ellie and Spencer Steer, and then if you want him, Tyler Stevenson. So like maybe this as a 3-man on DraftKings becomes kind of interesting. This is in no way to say that Jamie Candelario can't come out and hit a home run. Stuart Fairchild at 2,800 could come out and 2 doubles and a couple stolen bases, and you get a decent score from them. They absolutely can score, but when we're talking about the probabilities, I'm more on the Montgomery side. TJ Friedel again is a good player. I just wish he was hitting here, even with the lefty. He won Rookie of the Year. Show some respect to India. Did he win the Rookie of the Year? I don't remember that. He did have. There was a one more effective season here. It was this one. Yeah, 2021. 122 WRC plus, 21 homers, 12 steals, 269, 376, 459. It's the only year he's been above average for run creation so far. 95 WRC plus, over 431 in 2022. 99 in 2023 with 17 homers, 14 steals, but a weak triple slash. This year so far, just 93. How many of these guys are new since 2019? That's bonkers. Just 2 of the Reds players were in the league in 2019. Just 5 guys on the other side? It's pretty wild how significant, but like in a real time scale, short these careers are. Even in baseball. Football, forget it. You're dealing with like a week and a half. All right, let's keep going. I almost started talking about Graham Ashcraft again. Nobody wants to hear that. Spencer Arrighetti, 6,300, 7,300. The price is right. Again, if you want to throw some darts, 25.9% strikeout rate against at least a few exploitable hitters in that Yankees lineup. It's just, you've got a really low strikeout for Verdugo at the high end of the lineup now. You've got Soto, who's incredibly hard to strike out and draws a ton of walks. Verdugo's also drawing walks. You've got Judge, who does strike out a lot, but also draws a tremendous number of walks. And Arrighetti, for as good as in spots these maybe looked, 12.3% walk rate. He is dealing with also an 8.27 ERA, a 4.14 xFIP in the small sample, but we're talking about 4 starts, 16 and a third innings. So it's not the spot for me. I'm kind of more on the Yankees bandwagon here. They're showing a little bit of power in the model. I think it's a gettable pitcher for the Yankees side, but I also think they are going to be popular. So maybe if you do think Arrighetti's going to succeed, it's not a direct line to like, all right, the Yankees are going to be popular, so I want to take the opposing pitcher. Like sometimes it can work with the bats where the pitcher's popular, so maybe I'll take some contrarian bats on the other side of them. Doesn't really work that way with opposing pitching, but it could be a good reason if you do believe in Arrighetti. Maybe it's a good reason to say, all right, I won't take him, but I also don't get to chalky Yankees just because I think he succeeds against them. And maybe that's the kind of day. That's like his ceiling here, I think, is like, had an okay day, held down the Yankees stack so that the stack didn't succeed, but he also didn't go off for like a slate winning score even at price. 63-73. I don't see a quality start in his future. He did go 5 2/3 against Cleveland in the last one. Again, struck out 6 in that game. 2 earned runs, 4 hits. Hasn't completed the 6. That was the deepest he went, the 5 2/3. He went 4 in his middle start. That was messy. He's given up earned runs in every start. The first one was the messiest, 7 earned runs in 3 innings. Just 2 in 4 innings against Atlanta, 4 in 3 2/3 against the Cubbies, and then 2 in 5 2/3 against Cleveland. I won't begrudge you the $6,300 value dart on DraftKings. It's just barely clinging to the board. But again, I'd rather take the shots with the Yankees again here. Soto, Judge, tremendous hitters in the middle of the lineup. 11.86, 13.73 in the home run model. You also get Stanton over the magic number at 10.35. He blasted the hardest hit ball that's been hit off of Justin Verlander in the StatCast era, I believe is what I saw. 7 home runs for Stanton on the season, a 227 ISO, a 17.3% barrel rate with 49.3% of hard hits. Both Judge and Soto actually better than that for premium contact, 16.8% barrel, 60.5% hard hits for Soto. Judge at 15.1 and 55.9. Soto drawing 15.4% walks and striking out just 13.6% of the time. Basically, if you see Juan Soto strike out looking, it's a mistake by the umpire. Actually, that's not totally true. He can be a little bit too picky sometimes. I love him for the walk. Some idiot announcer the other day was talking about him and said, like, yeah, I really think Juan Soto could be better if he was more aggressive at the plate. You're not paying Juan Soto to walk. I'm absolutely paying Juan Soto to walk. Are you kidding? It's one of the best features of his game is his .432 on base percentage and a 15.4% walk rate. Last year was 18.2% strikeouts and 18.6% walks. That's exactly what I'm paying Juan Soto to do. And to hit over 300 and to hit 40 home runs and drive in a bunch of great runs like crazy. Walks are a huge part of his game. It's insane to say that. Anyway, rant over. Anthony Volpe at the top of the lineup, 4,600, 3,100. 4 home runs, 7 steals, hit another homer yesterday. Is just having another one of those years so far, or a repeat of last season where like the contact is there, the counting stats are there, the average is going to dip up and down, the on base I think is going to dip up and down, but we're doing it a little bit more stably. We're striking out less, we're walking more. There have been some improvements this year. He's not as lost at the plate, so I think Volpe is an effective option in the leadoff spot. I just kind of think he should be hitting down here and like Labor leadoff. Verdugo would also be a candidate to lead off if you wanted to get Volpe out of that spot. Verdugo at 3,700, 3,000. He's just been good from the cleanup spot. Hit another home run yesterday. 5 home runs on the season. 175 ISO, 135 WRC plus, 275, 362, 450. Doesn't strike out, draws some walks, puts bat on ball. Lefty in Yankee Stadium. Stanton's cheap at 44.31 for his upside. Rizzo's very cheap at 44.33. Rizzo up to 265, 338, 426. Creating runs 24% better than average. 6 home runs. Plenty of power from the left side of the plate for him. Glaber still kind of bottomed out at 216, 290, 266, a 67 WRC plus. We know there's a ton of talent there. Austin Wells, really like the kid's bat, even though he's at 179, 324, 268. I mentioned this the other day. I think he's doing interesting things at the plate. For one, in a small sample of batted ball events, 12.2% barrels is good, especially from a player that we got 13.8% from in a small sample last year with 41.4% hard hits and 4 home runs and 75 plate appearances. They're expecting him to hit. The hard hits are down a little bit, but he's striking out at just 12.7% while drawing walks at an 18.3% clip. He was a low strikeout option but wasn't drawing walks last year. This is all in 71 plate appearances, so nothing to really go too crazy about. But I do think that this characteristic is interesting for a catcher who does have noteworthy ability to put bat on ball and hits for some power and another lefty in Yankee Stadium. So just kind of interesting at 3,224. If you're stacking up Yankees, you build a bunch of them, I think you're throwing Austin Wells into some catcher shares. Ozzy Cabrera, 3,629. I was honestly hoping we'd get John Birdie again. Cabrera, 95 WRC plus, 4 home runs, 2 steals, 250, 285, 397. He's fine. Mix and match guy at the bottom of the lineup, who every time I say that tends to produce. Carlos Rodon, 7,900, 8,600. Doesn't project out great. It's the Astros on the other side. 15.2% strikeout rate for this projected version of the Astros lineup. We probably have that by now. Let's see if it's up on Labs. Yep. Alex Bregman sliding to 6th. Might be a good decision. The now confirmed version of the Astros lineup has a 15.2% strikeout rate. Same group of hitters last year, 18.1%. So small samples be damned. This is a team that is very, very good at limiting strikeouts. Carlos Rodon, not exactly on form, 22.6% strikeout rate this year. 22.4% in his disastrous first Yankee season last year. But before that, he was at 33.4% in 2022, 30-something percent the year before that. He was a very high-end strikeout pitcher. Just was injured throughout last year and just hasn't been totally on form, but he hasn't been pitching too poorly this year. 3.68 ERA. The xFIP doesn't love him at 4.61. This is probably the more honest number, but Stuff Plus really likes the makeup of the arsenal still. Just a 10% swinging and a 25% CSW. I think if he's able to keep throwing good pitches, some of this is going to have to round into form a little bit. He gave up 6 earned runs on and 7 total runs on 8 hits while striking out 6, but giving up 3 home runs at Baltimore in his last start. The home runs are what really burnt him in that game. He otherwise pitched somewhat effectively. Start before that, over 6 against Milwaukee, gave up a home run, struck out 8, walked 1, just the 1 earned run, just 2 hits. A 1-hitter against the Athletics over 7 innings. Struck out just 4, walked 2, but no runs, just 1 hit. 3 earned runs against Toronto over 4, 2 earned runs against each of Miami and Arizona in 6 innings and 5 1/3 innings early in the year. So some good, not great, not killer starts, but effective enough starts. What I think is important for Rodon, too, is when he's been going well, they've let him pitch deep into games. He's completed the 6th inning 3 times with a 7-inning start in there. It's not bad. So it's just the opponent really that's holding him down here. I just don't love the strikeout ceiling. At 86, 79, he just kind of falls into the middle, and he's a little bit lower middle than the Paddocks, Montgomerys, and Pavettas of the, well, maybe not Pavetta, but the Paddock and Montgomery play. And then probably Savali, if you want to throw him into that bin, is way higher than both of them. So given that he prices out similar to where Savali's at on FanDuel at least, I'd rather go there. I'd rather go probably to Montgomery against Cincinnati with all the strikeouts that are available there than Rodon against Houston that just doesn't have them. I would certainly rather go to Paddock at 65 for a big discount player to player. I think Rodon also, you could just be looking at a spot where the Astros scored 3 or 4 against him. He went 6, struck out 4, walked 2, and they win the game, but he didn't get a quality start. Maybe something like that. At 79 on DraftKings, I don't think you're there. I think other players have higher ceilings. I think you can definitely take some Astros bats against Carlos Rodon. Go home run hunting a little bit. He has given up some premium contact. 90 plus miles an hour of exit velo, 43.8% hard hits is significant, 8.6% barrels. It's amounted to some home runs for sure, and just gave up 3 home runs in one game to a very good team. Altuve at the top spot, low strikeouts. Tucker, Alvarez, low strikeout. Jeremy Pena just striking out 14% of the time this year. Hell, even John Singleton's just at an 18.9%. Bregman, for as bad as he's been, is at 12.3%. Jainer Diaz, 14.3%. The only regular striking out more than 20% of the time is Jake Myers. He's at 23.9, which isn't great, but it's not egregiously bad. It's an incredible contact team, and they've got power. Tucker's got 10 home runs. Hit one out last night into right field. 287 ISO for him. Definitely targets. Even lefty-lefty. Neither of these guys suffers against any lefty. There's no concern lefty-lefty for these 2 guys. Alvarez hasn't been quite himself at the plate, but he's got 7 home runs, 188 ISO, still creating runs 20% better than average. Altuve's got 7 homers, 7 steals, a 170 WRC+. He's got an 8.68 in the home run model. Tucker's at 10.37. Alvarez still leading the way at 12.9. Jeremy Pena's having a successful season so far. He's created runs 29% better than average. He's slashing 313, 357, 433. Very low strikeout, kind of back to doing good things that had him as a successful first season. That first year when he came in and replaced Carlos Correa, 22 homers, 11 steals, 253, 289, 426. Last year, 10 homers, 13 steals. The triple slash was a little bit better, but the WRC plus was down. This year, he's kind of putting it all together in 143 plate appearances. John Singleton over 74 chances. Lefty power for 2,800, 2,500. He's got 3 home runs. He's got a 175 ISO. He's putting decent bat on ball. Not the highest end player in the world. Not lefty is probably not great. I haven't looked at his numbers lefty. We can check him real quick. He's had this weird journeyman career that we've talked about before. He is now 32. We'll just look at the career. In 137 career plate appearances against left-handed pitching, he's actually better lefty-lefty. He's hit 7 of his 19 major league home runs against lefties. So 7 against lefties and then 12 against righties in 462 plate appearances. Against righties, his triple slash is 153, 275, 278. He's got a 125 ISO and a 63 WRC+. against lefties. 269, 358, 504 with a 235 ISO and a 144 WRC plus. I didn't realize that he was a reverse splits guy that strongly. All right, so Singleton is actually even more interesting there. That's kind of cool. Very cheap bat with that lefty pop in Yankee Stadium is interesting enough. I wouldn't leave him out. Bregman for just 42.27. I will continue rolling the dice. This is one of those just go down with the ship kind of players right now. It might get worse from here. He has looked completely lost at the plate, but there's just so much skill there over time that I have a hard time giving up on Alex Bregman, especially again when we're still drawing walks and we're not striking out. So it's just a matter of balls in play. Some adjustments and we could be right there. The premium contact is another issue. But as long as we're getting bat on ball. He's got a 217 BABIP this year. With all those balls in play, it's just a 217 batting average on balls in play. I mean, that's what's wrong in the triple slash. And then the fact that we're dealing with just 3.7% barrels, 33.6% hard hits. Those were down already last year, but they were never all that strong. I have a hard time giving up on Alex Bregman when he's this cheap. Diaz at 41.28, very cheap for the quality. 272, 308, 400. He'll go up and down in the triple slash, but there's a little bit of pop there. There's a lot of really good contact in that bat. Very playable catcher bat. Mauricio Dubon, a utility knife kind of a guy. Second, third, and short with outfield eligibility on FanDuel for 23. Not uninteresting. He's got a home run and a stolen base this year. Last year he had 10 and 7. He also had 10 home runs and 5 steals from Jake Myers last year. He's got 3 homers and a stolen base and 67 plate appearances this year. A couple of frisky players at the bottom of the lineup to, for mix and match purposes if you build out a ton of Astros stacks. I like both. Woohoo! Paul Skeens, Major League debut Saturday. They did it. They changed their minds. He was earlier in the week reported he was going to pitch in the minors. Damn it. I hate when I miss on an iPhone and accidentally send somebody the wrong reaction to their text. I wanted to give that a thumbs up, not a thumbs down. That's a major debut. He's been absolutely blowing away the minor leagues. That'll be an interesting spot to talk about on Saturday, or to look at on Saturday. So it's bats either way on this one. I do think Rodon has an opportunity to be effective, but I question what the actual ceiling is here, given the low strikeout output from him and the low strikeouts on the other side. Arrighetti, I just have a real problem tangling with this Yankees lineup in this stadium with a pitcher like that. If you want to roll the value dice at 6,300 on DraftKings, he's in the bucket, but there are other options that look a lot better. Bats on both sides for sure, and really 1 through 9, I really don't have a problem with either lineup. If I'm taking anybody out, it's probably Ozzie Cabrera first, who's been pretty good, and then maybe it's Bregman, which is weird to say. But yeah, 1 through 9 in both of these lineups I think are totally playable here. Yankees are in the better spot matchup-wise. Rodon is good, but there's no reason to think the Astros can't get him. Let's see, we got the Red Sox. We probably do. I promise we'll be done well ahead of lock. It's 4:49. Lock is a little under 2 hours away. I am just clicking on all the wrong spots. So, Pivetta. We had him twice early in the season, once against Seattle on March 29th. Struck out 10, walked 0, gave up a home run, just 1 run on 3 hits. Struck out 3, gave up 5, walked 1, no hits in 5 innings against Oakland. And then he's been gone since then. We had, what are you doing? Looks like just 1 rehab outing. He worked 3 innings. That's not great. Faced 16 hitters, struck out 5, walked 4, gave up 4 earned runs. I don't really care about the quality. The strikeouts are nice to see, obviously. As I've said before, though, I more care about depth than quality for minor league starts, rehab starts for major league pitchers, things like that. I just question if we're getting more than 5 here. Probably good reason for the Red Sox to be a little bit precious with Pivetta. 8,700, 8,100. He projects out just fine. I think, like I said, I cut that to 5 and change innings. I think he's playable, but you're probably dealing with a short start. And why would you really want it against the Atlanta Braves? Good as Pivetta can be. And Pivetta can be good. Last year, 31.2% strikeouts, a 4.04 ERA, a 3.55 xFIP. Did give up a bunch of premium contact and power, which doesn't necessarily play well against the Braves. So there's that. That was true the year before as well. And he wasn't nearly as good for strikeouts. He was worse for walks, and he was worse for runs. So we've really had, 16 starts and 142 and 2/3 of work for Nick Pivetta, where he was really good. I don't really see the need to go to a short start Nick Pivetta against the Braves. Chris Sale, on the other hand, at 98, 10, 5, top of the board. Both sites. Very, very strong projection for Chris Sale. Over 36 and 2/3 in 6 starts this year. 29% strikeout rate, 4.8% walks, a 3.44 ERA, a 2.74 xFIP, just a 0.95 whip with a 15.4% swinging strike rate and a 34% CSW. Sign me up. That will absolutely play, even against a pretty decent lineup. This is a 24.8% strikeout rate for this Red Sox lineup, by the way. We're not counting Vaughn Grissom at 0 over 13 plate appearances. Good job not striking out yet, Rook, but we're not going to let that go into the average. So 24.8% from this group. Same group last year. We'll leave Vaughn Grissom out again. 28.4%, 27.3% if we include Vaughn Grissom's 18.8%. So I think there's significant strikeout upside for Chris Sale. He's obviously very, very good. You could throw the revenge factor in there if that's your thing. He's gone 7 in 3 of his 6 starts. Went 5 1/3, so he's pitched into the 6th inning in 5 of his 6 starts. Last time out, he just went 5. Struck out 9, walked 0, gave up 1 earned run on 6 hits to the Mariners. He struck out 6 of the stingy Guardians. Walked 1, gave up a homer, but just 2 hits, just the 1 earned run. Struck out 7 against Texas. 3 earned runs in that one, including a homer, but just 1 walk, 5 hits. 7 strikeouts against Miami. 5 earned runs in that one. That was his worst start of the year. Diamondbacks, who were good against lefties, he struck out 6. Good start in the first one of the year against Philly, at Philly. It's been really good. Feel like he's probably earned a $10,000 price tag on DraftKings, so maybe a little bit cheap over there. Still the highest price pitcher. 10-5 on FanDuel, totally appropriate. Think it's a good spot. You can probably grab some Red Sox hedge. That said, most of their best players, lefties. Not the best spot for lefty-lefty, even for these guys who don't really struggle that much against lefties. Like Jarren Duran for his career has been decent. Rafi Devers has been pretty good against lefties. I forget Willie Abreu. I don't think it's a very large sample. Connor Wong hitting second is kind of interesting. As we've discussed, Connor Wong out of the gate really, really strong this year. 346, 373, 577. 5 home runs, a 231 ISO. Our sneaky little Red Sox catcher who puts bat on ball really effectively for power over the last couple of seasons has gotten exposed as potentially being really good. Now he's hitting second. I just wish it wasn't against Chris Sale. I wish we had a weaker lefty so we could go to some of this, because this is an interesting configuration of this lineup. As a wildly contrarian option, you could probably do worse. There is a lot of talent right here. Duran for 48.32. He's at 267, 339, 420 with a 111 WRC plus. Tyler O'Neill has been, excluding the couple of weeks that he had to miss because Rafi Devers ran into him in left field and bumped him on the head. He's been a tremendous asset for the Red Sox so far. 18.8% barrels, 45.3% hard hits, 9 homers, 292, 398, 625, 333 ISO, 179 WRC plus. Some of those numbers were higher about a week ago. Got thrown off possibly a little bit by that collision. But still a really good hitter. And was good in the past. We're just seeing him finally healthy again. What did I want to look up? So just to put it out there, the Red Sox this season against left-handed pitching as a team, 11th in baseball with a 109 WRC plus. As a team, they're slashing 240, 350, 382. They do strike out at a 29.5% clip against lefties. Bonus to Chris Sale, obviously. They've hit 7 homers, 12.1% walk rate in the split, but just a 142 ISO. So kind of up and down for quality in the split. Looking at some of the individuals, O'Neill has been crushing lefties. 2 of his home runs and a 360, 543, 720 triple slash. It's just in 35 plate appearances, so nothing to go crazy about. But a 360 ISO, a 238 WRC plus in that small sample. Tristan Casas was doing good, lefty-lefty, but he's gone. But Devers in 34 plate appearances, 296, 441, 370 this year, creating runs 41% better than average. Hasn't shown any power. Striking out at a 29.4% clip in the split. Connor Wong, 308, 379, 462, one of his home runs against lefties, 138 WRC plus. Duran, another lefty, 286, 432, 314, yeah. Creating runs 26% better than average in just 44 plate appearances. Abreu hasn't been good, but it's only 16 plate appearances lefty-lefty, so it's a little bit difficult to suss out. Garrett Cooper, the guy who's paid to hit lefties, only 2 plate appearances against the lefty this year, so we won't ding him for going over so far. If Chris Sale decides to come out and have a bad day, you're going to want Red Sox. It's just, how often is that going to happen? But considering that Duran and Devers are not bad lefty-lefty, and Wong and O'Neill are quite good lefty-lefty, or righty-lefty, quite good against lefties, or quite good overall, let's put it that way. Not impossible to see the top of the Red Sox lineup succeeding. It's just, what do you get from the bottom? Vaughn Grissom, still a work in progress. Garrett Cooper, again, a platoon-oriented player who typically does succeed against lefties for a little bit of power. He's got a 5.23 in the home run model. Maybe he can get Chris Sale here, but not a good player overall and a ton of strikeouts. Romy Gonzalez, Wilyer Abreu, Ceddanne Rafaela at the bottom of the lineup. They're going to have some issues turning the lineup over. So you're really going to be looking at like 4 bites at the apple, if that, from the top 4 hitters in the lineup if you go that way. It's just for contrarian reasons, but it's on the board. I'm not selling it to you, but I'm telling you that maybe it exists. I greatly prefer the Chris Sale side of it. The Braves bats against Pivetta and whatever comes out of the Red Sox bullpen I think are totally playable. Ronald Acuna, 12.87 in the home run model. Riley at 11.18. Olsen at 12.34. They've been stuck at 3 home runs apiece, just 156 and 157 ISO so far. Riley still creating runs above average, Olsen below it, but we know these are 2 of the better power bats in the league at any position, and certainly the best power bats at the corners in the infield. So happy to roster those 2 guys. Their prices are down at 34.35 and 53.55. Ozzie Albies on DraftKings remains cheap, $5,200. Not really sure why we're down that far for Ozzie Albies. Tremendous second baseman. $3,800, a little bit discounted for his talent on FanDuel as well. So right now you can get the top 4 in the Braves lineup for $3,700 apiece, $14,900 on FanDuel. You can get the top 5, including Ozuna, for $55,600, $27,800 total on DraftKings. Still expensive, but they've come down a little bit, and it's not like they've just fallen apart and not been, the numbers-wise, they've fallen apart, but like they still have their arms and legs, and they can hit balls still. Still the same group of guys that absolutely mashed through all of last year. Orlando Arcia for $36.28, a playable shortstop option. He hasn't been great, 88 WRC plus, got dropped to waivers in the Dynasty League, and I went back and forth about whether I wanted to pick him up or not, and ultimately didn't for this week. We took Castro instead. Got some stolen bases out of him already. But I think Arcia, this is probably bottom end for him. We trend up from here. He hit 17 home runs last year. Very playable. Michael Harris, star caliber talent for $46.33 at the bottom of the lineup. Down to a 96 WRC+, 3 homers, 5 steals. Hasn't been great over the last couple of weeks, but he seems to hit in spurts, and it's usually more on than off. So there's a lot of talent for the price. Travis d'Arnaud, 4,300, 3,000. You're buying a lot of cheap catcher power. And Jared Kelenic at the bottom of the lineup, down to 280, 333, 373. But he did finally hit his first home run of the year. We know there's good lefty pop there. We'll see what it's been. He started out really hot in terms of his triple slash, dramatically cooled off. So he's been kind of hot and cold, but the price is at least right at the bottom of the Braves lineup. So Chris Sale, big yes, biggest asset in the game. Probably then Braves bats. Maybe some sneaky contrarian Red Sox, particularly at the top of the lineup, top 4 or 5 hitters. And then Nick Pivetta, probably a no, just given that it's the Braves on the other side, and I think we're dealing with a 5-inning start at best. Just 2 games left. We're at 5 o'clock. Doing just fine. We've got both of these lineups. Twins. Oh, we have the Twins already. Great. What was that tab I clicked on? What is this? Is some old showdown slate evaluating tool I made, I guess? The hell is this drawing prices from? These are current prices. It's very old ownership, whatever it's looking at. I guess I made it so I could do like a quick 1-game analysis. I didn't even remember this was here. So much old weird stuff in this thing. So George Kirby, pretty spectacular pitcher. 26.3% strikeout rate, 2.6% walk rate. That is a phenomenal strikeout to walk ratio. Literally right now, to start his career, like one of the best strikeout to walk ratios we've ever seen over the course of the entirety of the beginning of his career. 3.76 ERA, a 3.12 xFIP that is a better number. Giving up just 30% hard hits, 87.5 miles an hour of exit velo. 11% swinging, 26.8% CSW. Last time out, an okay start. He went 6, gave up just 1 earned runs and 4 hits. This was against the Astros, so it was a low strikeout game, 3 strikeouts. But successful start, booked the quality start. Doesn't look like they got the win in that one because the Mariners mostly suck. But he is a big part of this Mariners pitching staff that's been so good at limiting opponents. Game before that, against a fairly low strikeout team, the Diamondbacks, he struck out 12. Walked 1, went 7 innings, gave up just 2 hits, no earned. No earned runs over 5 at Colorado, struck out 7, 5 hits. 2 earned runs against the Reds over 6, struck out 6. Fairly reliable shot at a quality start. Definitely reliable at keeping runners off the base paths and limiting opportunities for the opponents. I think we can find a decent strikeout game against this team. This group current year 22.8%, last year 23.8%. Some potential strikeouts lurking in this lineup for sure for George Kirby. They're kind of mixed in terms of being able to draw walks. A couple of these guys are high walk rates. A couple of these guys lower walk rates over time. But he's just not going to issue those free passes. So 9,500, 9,000, I think he's perfectly effective on either site. Is who he is kind of a spot for George Kirby. On the other side, Chris Paddack, 6,500, 7,800. Definitely need to talk about him against the team striking out 28.2% of the time this year. 26.3% in more complete samples for the same group last year. Paddack this year, just a 19% strikeout rate. Last year, he barely worked at all, 5 innings in relief. The year before, just 22 1/3 innings in 5 starts. 21.5% strikeout rate in that sample. To get any kind of sample for Paddack, we got to go back in time a little further. He was 21.6% over 108 1/3 in 22 starts back in 2021. Had a 3.87 xFIP under a more rough ERA. But league average-ish strikeouts, it's not high-end strikeouts. It was 23.7 in 59 innings all the way back in 2020. 26.9, there's the good one. It's a ways back. Back in 2019, when he was just a prospect, just a young pup coming up, 140 and 2/3, 26 starts, struck out 26.9%. He was pretty good that year. 395. That says FIP. I'm not sure if that's searching out the XFIP or the FIP number from that year, but either way, he was very good that year. And then it's just been completely derailed by injuries in the past few seasons. But the point of all that is, even if he is the guy who's just worked in the past few years in his limited sample at like a league average type strikeout rate, well, your league average pitchers are the ones striking these guys out at 26.3%, 28.2% over the last two seasons. That's what league average pitchers are doing to these guys. So there's reason to believe that Paddock can succeed here. It's backed up a little bit by 6 strikeouts in his last game against Boston over 6 innings. Pitched clean in that one, just gave up 2 hits, 1 walk, no runs. Start before that against the very bad Angels team, he gave up 4 earned, 8 hits, struck out just 2, walked 1. That obviously isn't the start we're looking for. 7 innings against the White Sox. Can I interest you in this one, though? The White Sox, kind of comparable so far to the Mariners. Mariners are better. They've got more power, certainly, but they strike out a lot and haven't been very good. Against the White Sox, he went 7, struck out 10, walked 0, no runs, 6 hits. Total meltdown against the Orioles, but we'll forgive them that. They're good. 9 runs, 12 hits, 2 strikeouts. Had a 5 strikeout game, 2 runs against the Dodgers. That was all right. 2 strikeouts only against the Brewers over 4 in his first start of the year. But the depth is built up. Those first 2, he went 4 and then 4 2/3. Then he went 5 1/3, 7, 5, 6. So we're getting a little bit more depth now that we're kind of reliably able to pitch innings, and his arm's not going to fall off. Especially for the money, I think there's upside here. Like I said, I think he's playable at the 7,800. You got a shot at the quality start. Certainly a shot at a handful of strikeouts. Needs to pitch clean innings. He's not the safest option on the board. He's got a 4.78 ERA, a 3.92 xFIP, 1.47 WHIP despite a low walk rate. So you're in danger of giving up some hits. You're in danger of giving up some runs. But I think it's a playable value spot for sure. And again, looking at the board, slotting right in there as the top option in the bargain bin. If you do that, you should probably take a couple shares of Mariners on the other side as a hedge. They're showing a little bit of power in the home run model. They've disappointed us in that department a little bit lately when we've looked at them, but it's realistic. 11.3 for Julio, 8.2 for Haniger. Cal Raleigh hit one yesterday as a pinch hitter. He's got 9 on the season, a 250 ISO, 9.86 in the home run model. Mitch Garver at 8.70. Those guys are positionally blocked in DraftKings stacks, which sucks. On FanDuel, you can have any 2 of them and Ty France. I would probably just take both the catchers and pretend France doesn't exist. These guys have been pretty bad. They strike out way too much. Josh Rojas is having the best season among these guys, over 96 plate appearances. 3 homers, 3 steals, creating runs 82% better than average, hitting for a little bit of power. Not striking out very much and drawing walks, but it's a very small sample. He's not this good. He's okay. He might be an effective leadoff option for them through the season, but he's certainly not this good. Jorge Polanco at 38.29 does have power upside. He's got 5 home runs on the season, but just a 125 ISO. Everything else has been bad. Haniger's got 5 home runs, but everything else about him has been pretty bad. It's a really short lineup. Luke Raley at the bottom, 31.25, maybe a little bit of lefty pop. We poached a home run from him the other day, but overall 0.094 ISO over 67 plate appearances. Not making much contact so far. Last year, the contact was good in a small sample. Actually, it was a bigger sample than I thought. Luke Raley made 406 plate appearances last year. The hell was I? 19 home runs, 241 ISO, 130 WRC+. I didn't realize he made that many plate appearances last year. So this is believable pop. Like I said, he's cheap for a little bit of lefty power. Dylan Moore, 3,000, 2,700, at least quad position eligible on FanDuel. 2 home runs, 5 steals, 115 WRC+ over 91, but we know Dylan Moore is a very shaky player. Not a lot of love for the Mariners outside of anything other than hedging some Paddock position. And the Twins, with my faith in Kirby, I'm really kind of limited in how appealing the Twins might be today. I know they've scored a bunch of runs lately, but I like him to succeed here. If you're going there, Edward Julian, he's got 7 home runs, but a 202, 326, 440, and a 34.1% strikeout rate, relying for some of his on-base and WRC+ from walks that Kirby's probably not going to issue. Doesn't look like a great spot for him. Carlos Correa, good player, still hitting the ball very hard. 1 home run so far, 262, 372, 369, 120 WRC+. one of the better spots, honestly, in that lineup for as little as people think of him these days. Priced very far down, 4,100, 2,900 from where he once was. Trevor Larnach, Max Kepler, a little bit of lefty pop from each of those guys. They're very cheap. 2 home runs apiece so far in small samples. Believable lefty power upside from either of these two guys for cheap prices. Jose Miranda, 3,300, 2,600 across sites. 2 home runs on the season, but as we talked about the other day, a little bit better of a line drive hitter, a little bit better of like a batting average, bat on ball type hitter. Alex Kirilloff from the left side does have a little bit of pop. He's hit 2 home runs this year. Willie Castro has been really interesting. He stole his 5th base, creating runs 17% better than average over 131 plate appearances. Fills 3 positions on FanDuel, 2 on DraftKings. Definitely one of the higher priority guys despite hitting 7th in this lineup. If you're just looking for cheap guys that can turn the lineup over and provide some counting stats and correlation, I think he's interesting. Christian Vasquez, Manny Margot, a little bit less interesting at the bottom of the lineup. So Kirby, a big yes from the top of the board. Chris Paddock, pretty big yes from the bargain bin. Both sites, I think he's effective as a value option. There is a strong path to both failure and success for Chris Paddock today, right? We're not looking at many opportunities where he just kind of splits the difference. I think we're either going way south or we're succeeding here. So you roll those dice or you don't. It's a binary choice with Paddock on this one. Mariners bats pretty limited. Twins bats pretty limited. Last game up, Coors Field. Monty says that ball that Cal Raleigh hit is still traveling. 3rd deck. Mercy. Travis hasn't played Bregman once all season. He's got to prove it, says Trav. Look, like I said, as I was stammering my way through it, I was trying to find a good reason not to give up on Bregman, and the best I could cling to was that low strikeout rate and the balls in play. But yeah, he's been brutal. And as I jokingly said the other day, maybe just something with Jose Abreu infected him as well. It infected Timmy Anderson before Jose Abreu left the White Sox, and now it's gotten Alex Bregman. I don't actually think that's the case. Not here to besmirch poor Jose Abreu. Tim Anderson, by the way, funny tweet somebody sent out just showing his numbers since getting knocked out by Jose Ramirez. The hell is it? Tim Anderson, this is per Dan Clark Sports, at Dan Clark Sports on Twitter. Tim Anderson, before being rocked by Jose Ramirez, in 3,482 at-bats, he uses at-bats, 283 average, 740 OPS, 98 home runs, 332 RBIs. Didn't include the steals, but that's also a factor for him. After being rocked by Jose Ramirez in 250 at-bats, 236 average, a 557 OPS, 0 home runs, and 12 RBIs. Jesus. Anyway, Timmy Anderson not in this game. Neither is Alex Bregman, for that matter. We don't appear to have the Giants lineup yet. Rockies has been in for a while now. I don't think we're going to pitching here. I certainly don't want Peter Lambert. I can make an argument for Jordan Hicks if you want me to. We did just see Kyle Harrison succeed here. We've seen a lot of pitching succeed in Coors Field from the visiting teams going up against the Rockies so far this year. Some in big surprise kind of spots. A couple of them were the best starts of all time at Coors Field. But it is still Coors Field. Even as bad as the Rockies are, and we are thankfully finding no good reason to endorse the Rockies other than low ownership today. But it's just still a little shaky for me. The one reason I do want to put it at least on the table is the 6,800 for Hicks. It does put him here on the board. So when we're talking bargain bin, I think he is playable at the DraftKings price. The FanDuel price is a little bit more shaky, given where he projects, given what the true ceiling looks like against some of the other starters on the slate. I think it's a little shakier there. But as a bargain bin SP2 on DraftKings, maybe you can get away with it. It just feels like we're just really pressing our luck trying to go back to a cheap Coors Field pitcher again. But he's been good. Limiting power like crazy. 0.66% home run rate. That means I'm sure it's only one home run. One home run that he gave up all the way back on April 10th. He's been pitching as a full starter this year. Seven starts, 38 innings, 19.7% strikeouts. It's not great, but against this Rockies team that's striking out at a 29.3% clip for the confirmed lineup, and the same guys were at a 26.8% rate last year. Believable strikeout upside for him. He did strike out 9 against the Pirates, who are like a similar kind of a team. He also had 5 against the Marlins. He had 6 against the Padres. He's worked deep into games. Completed the 6 3 times. Booked a quality start in each one of those. 1 7-inning start in here. The ability to check power is definitely noteworthy. Very low average launch angles. This was all relief work. 65 2/3 last year. A negative 0.1 degree average launch is spectacular. Talking Framber Valdez kind of levels there. 1.40 home run rate. Kept hard hits and exit velo down. 5.4% barrels. Year before, 8 starts, 61 1/3 total innings. 1.4 degree average launch, just 1.90% home runs. Again, terrific in terms of limiting hard contact. Struck out 24%, but walked 13.3% that season. He's cut the walks so far this year. Strikeouts are definitely down, but we did have more strikeouts in relief. We did have more strikeouts as a part-time starter, hybrid role 2 years ago. That's your selling points for Jordan Hicks at Coors Field. Limiting power, potential strikeout upside, awful opponent on the other side. Still a terrible ballpark to pitch in. Buyer beware, but I do think this is on the board. This, not so much. I think you're just getting too cute by half if you go there on FanDuel. Lambert is just a no. 20 2/3 innings this year, partly in relief. 2 starts, a 3-inning start and a 3 1/3 inning start. I can't imagine we're getting more than like 4 innings here. So it's just a firm no. Giants, one of the top stacks overall on the board. Not immense power numbers, but a lot of 7s and high 7s into the 9s for some of these guys. So good enough power numbers. I mentioned it yesterday with Jung-Hoo Lee, and I want to bring it back up because he's sitting just at 264, 314, 329. I forgot to check what his ownership was yesterday, but I think he's very interesting. Excuse me. If people are more drawn to either names they know or just some of the better results so far this year that are in other spots of the lineup, or some of the name recognition at cheap pricing that you can get down there too. And Jung-Hoo Lee goes a little bit under-owned for being in the top spot of the lineup, hopefully, and for where he's priced. I think he's super interesting just in Coors Field, just because of how much contact, how much he's putting the ball in play. 8.5% strikeouts so far in 153 plate appearances is shockingly low. 6.5% walks is a pretty low walk rate. So that it just equals a ton of balls in play. He's only at 264, 314, 329, but if you can go up there and even 3 out of 5 times that you come up to the plate, put the ball in play at Coors Field, you're gonna find success. So if he goes under-owned just by a little bit across the industry of what I'm sure is going to be a popular stack again, he becomes more interesting. Thairo Estrada for 41-32, 5 home runs, a stolen base, underperforming his talent so far this year, but a very good ball player. 14 home runs, 23 steals, and 530 last year. 14 home runs, 21 steals the year before, right around a 260, 270 type hitter. So underperforming a little bit, and his price is fairly cheap but for a Coors Field game. Matt Chapman, the only Giants hitter above 5,000 on the DraftKings slate in Coors Field against Peter Lambert and then the Rockies bullpen. Who's pricing this on DraftKings? Giants fans, probably. That's really, really low. You get a little bit higher on FanDuel. 3,400 for Conforto, 31 for Chapman, 3,000 plus for these guys. But it's still pretty effectively low. I know it's not the best lineup in the world, but there's some effective enough hitters there. Conforto, over 140 plate appearances, has 5 home runs, a 112 WRC+. Lamont Wade, you guys know I love this guy. 485 on base so far this season in 101. Just 1 home run, 1 stolen base, but creating runs 77% better than average. If Jung-Hoo Lee's not going to do his thing, Lamont Wade needs to be back in that leadoff spot. Very good lefty bat. A little bit of power last year, 14 home runs in 17 home runs in 519 plate appearances. Wilmer Flores. We all know that Wilmer can hit for a little bit of power. He's got a 9.19 in the home run model. Just one on the season in 103 plate appearances, really scuffling along so far this year. But Wilmer's a good hitter over time. Last year, 284, 355, 509, a 225 ISO, 23 homers. Happy to go to Wilmer Flores against this pitcher if he's in the lineup. Mike Yastrzemski, a little bit of lefty pop, 3 home runs on the season. A lower priority bet, but if he's low owned for cheap pricing with his lefty power, good enough reason to play him. Chapman does have a lot of batted ball ability. It translates here and there into home run upside, and that's basically all he does right now. 4 home runs on the season. He does have the weird 3 stolen bases, but we're really just home run hunting with Matt Chapman. 7.73 in the home run model. Blake Sable, Nick Ahmed, and by the way, when I say home run hunting, obviously that can be doubles, right? If he hits 2 doubles to the warning track but doesn't happen to homer, we're still doing all right there. So it's really, we're power hunting. Nick Ahmed, totally skippable at the bottom of the lineup. Blake Sable, mix and match play as a cheap catcher, 3,400, 2,900 across sites. Last year, 13 home runs and 344. Capable of putting bat on ball fairly well. If you choose to go to the Rockies, and again, I don't think this is the spot. I was endorsing them a little bit yesterday because I thought maybe the power would come through against Kyle Harrison with how much power he's given up, how much premium contact. But that didn't work out, and today they're not showing anything. So again, cue the 12-run, 4 home run game against Jordan Hicks of all people. But right now, they're not looking like a good spot. Everybody below 3. Hunter Goodman, the power hitter from the minors, at 3.13 in the home run model. Nobody even a third of the way to the magic number in the entire lineup. Let's do it like that. Charlie Blackmon, 2.30 in the home run model. He's got 1 on the season, a 111 ISO. You get a 118 ISO out of Ezekiel Tovar. He's got 3 homers, 3 steals, but he's cooled off at the plate after a decent start that had him looking maybe like he was going to fulfill his promise this year. Joker's over here really excited about this Coors Field game. I've also got my pinky finger like an inch deep in his ear. He likes having his ear scratched, but then he moves his head and my finger goes like, right? It's a little gross, huh? Ryan McMahon, 5,400, 3,700. He's at 302, 391, 481. Having a nice start to his year. I'm happy for Ryan McMahon, just on a really bad baseball team. Elias Diaz, 4,800, 3,200. He's also having a good start. Very playable catcher in the cleanup spot at Coors Field for 4,800, 3,200. Effective hitter, 297, 344, 405 so far this year. A little bit of power from the right side. Brendan Rodgers has been a mess. 245, 298, 341, 349, creating runs 29% worse than average. It's probably time to move on. Brenton Doyle has been good, 4,400, 3,600. The price is a little high for the talent, especially on FanDuel, but it is a Coors Field game. He's got 3 homers, 4 steals, creating runs 8% worse than average, but that counts as success on this team. I do think that Borchard, Doyle, and Goodman are interesting, and Beck from the bottom of this lineup. I was talking about these guys a little bit yesterday, hoping this would be the configuration, although we had Doyle, I think, up top yesterday. But Borchard's got real power. A little bit that he's shown in the majors in small samples so far. A little bit of ability to hit the ball, too. 316, 372, 684 with 4 homers and 43 chances last year. Hunter Goodman has hit a bunch of home runs in the minors and does have a lot of raw power. He's only got 1 in the show in 14 plate appearances this year. Last year in 77, he only hit 1. Has not put together any kind of consistency in the majors yet this year, but does have the highest home run mark on the team from the 8 spot. And then Jordan Beck, a fairly decent prospect, not doing anything yet in 24 plate appearances, but playable if you're going to this team. I oddly like McMahon and then the bottom 4 best, which is not the way you want to build a stack. That will be a very contrarian build for sure. But I don't think I would deploy it here given the lack of home run potential against Hicks. So that's it. Top to bottom, up and down. Hit the like button. Yeah, there is weather in Cincy D. That's the concern there. Getting back into the pitcher breakdown here real quick. So we've got weather concerns here and then just better real-life pitcher going up against a moderately productive team, but a bad version of their lineup in a hitter's park with weather coming in and potentially creating a fairly long delay that could just screw up the entire thing. I do think it is a spot to avoid pitching. I wasn't on Graham Ashcraft against the Diamondbacks anyway. The question that arises there then is, I do like the Diamondback stack. Does the rain impact that? That's where we potentially run into problems in my mind in that game. That's the only thing I'm really concerned about because I do have Diamondbacks in my lineup and I do have Christian Walker as the home run pick of the day. I like that spot a lot. Chris Sale, top of the board against the Red Sox. A lot of justification. He's pitching really, really well. Like we looked at, maybe the top 4 or 5 hitters from the Red Sox as a super contrarian stack could get him. There's some lefty-lefty quality with the lefties. There's some good hitters from the right side in that group. But then it falls apart later in the lineup for the Red Sox. So they might not just be able to sequence. Even if the top of the lineup succeeds, there's no real reason to believe that the stack will continue to keep on generating runs and turning the lineup back over and sequencing. So Sale looks like he's in a really good spot. The only issue for Kyle Bradish, in my mind, is does he get the 6th inning? I think 5 is easy. Unless, obviously, if he falls apart, he falls apart. But if things are going well, I think we've got 5 in our sights. Whether he comes out for that 6th inning is crucial at 92 on FanDuel. I think he does. I really do. Needs to pitch efficiently, but if we're having a good game, I think we get the 6th inning. Savali, 8,500 price, way down for the talent in a spectacular matchup. He's just been awful over 3 straight starts. So it's a little bit of faith there, but I've got faith in that pitcher. I think he is good. George Kirby, I know is good. Very high-end pitcher. If you wanted to not pay for Sale and consider George Kirby the top pitcher on the board, I don't think you're necessarily making a mistake. Like there's good enough reason to be skeptical about Savali. There's good enough reason to think, all right, Bradish is only going 5 innings. Do you pick up that I have to stop every time in my head and say Bradish like Radish and then say Bradish? Still doing that. I don't know where Bradish came from, but it's still locked in there. So there's good argument to be made that Kirby is the number 2 pitcher on the entire slate. Right now, not a lot of daylight between these projections anyway, but I think that's worth mentioning. Pivetta, I think we're just dealing with 5 innings. That's a 5-inning projection, given how good he's been over the last season and 2 starts this year. But it's against the Braves, and why do we really want to mess with it? It just doesn't feel right. Monty, with the rain and everything, kind of a why do we want to mess with it? He's appropriately priced. He can succeed if he managed to get through 6 dry innings and the game concludes. He could succeed at those prices, but it looks low priority. Paddock, top priority from the bargain bin against Seattle. I like the strikeout upside. I think he can, not will, but can put up 6 successful innings, find a quality start, maybe a win for us, and a handful of strikeouts. Carlos Rodon, I just don't like him in that spot. The prices are fine. He absolutely can succeed against this team. It's just Houston's so good at limiting strikeouts, and he's been way down in the strikeout department so far this year. So skeptical. I think the projection is correct. I think he's correctly just in the dead middle of the board there. Hicks, if you want to do it from the bargain bin on DraftKings, I get it. I do think there's justification for it. But again, we're really tempting fate going back-to-back value pitchers at Coors Field. Parker against the Orioles is kind of a no just based on the opponent. Arrighetti, kind of a no based on the opponent. I could see either one of those guys succeeding, but I think we're getting awfully thin there, and there are better options above. Ashcraft, Flexen, and Lambert, pretty hard nose. Between those guys, Ashcraft is easily the most talent. That's why he's at the higher price. Just didn't project out all that strongly against Arizona. And again, with rain in there, use the rain as a tiebreaker if you need to. Home run board. Some Yankees, some Houston, some Braves. Kind of the usual suspects up at the top of the board. Judgy, Alvarez, Acuna, Olsen, Soto, Julio Rodriguez sneaking in there, but then back to Riley, Tucker, Stanton, Cal Raleigh sneaking in, Rafi Devers, then back to Ozuna, Albies. Pretty straight line home run board. We're not breaking any news with the fact that those guys all have good shots at hitting a home run. You can mix it up to basically any given slate, and a lot of those guys would land around those numbers. A little bit lower than that. Eloy Jimenez, the only real White Sox shining through for any kind of value. You see Lamont Wade, Wilmer Flores from the Giants, both sitting there, as well as a little further down, Mike Yastrzemski, Titor Estrada, Matt Chapman, and Michael Conforto, all 7.5 plus from here up. Not a bad group. Obviously, it's a Coors Field game, though, so everybody's going to be there. It would be better if that was like a sneaky spot in Tampa Bay or something. Or in a home game for San Francisco, let's say. O'Neill, not a bad number against Chris Sale. Pairing that with Rafi Devers, who, again, does succeed lefty-lefty. I think that's about it. Really not that much interesting to talk about on the home run board today. Gunnar at a 9.16 that could justifiably be a little bit higher. Anthony Santander right there. I do think that Orioles stack is interesting. Mountcastle also right there. They're not a bad alternative to like the Diamondbacks maybe. That's kind of an interesting comp. They're similarly priced, similarly talented, similar matchups. That's not far off price-wise, skills-wise, results-wise. So a reasonable enough pivot, especially if you want to get away from the rain, if that becomes a bigger question mark there. Danger the safety dog. No issues with that idea. Game stack Yanks Astros? Absolutely. I could totally see that. There's plenty of quality in both of those lineups. It's just a matter of who we're putting together because there are high prices in that game. I'm not sure which site you play on, bud, but if we're going to the very best of the best, it becomes a little bit harder. Just given Soto, Judge, Tucker, Alvarez, and Altuve, all at very high prices. If you start using some of the building blocks around those guys, though, and like, say your goal was, all right, out of those 5 guys, I want to have at least 3. For me, I'll probably get greedy and a little bit home-oriented and say I want these 2. But I think if you're just doing it in a vacuum, given that these 3 guys are a little bit cheaper, probably makes sense to consider those 3 as your stars. And then you get a lot of quality if you went like Volpe, Verdugo, Stanton, Rizzo. Well, that's too many. I guess we'll leave out. Let's leave out Volpe. That's what, 3-3. Actually, put Volpe back into that. So you've got second, outfield, shortstop. That's too many outfielders. Can't do that. Let's drop Stanton. I think you need to use Bregman. We're building up a pretty high price here. If you can get to it without just being like, I need Oswaldo Cabrera, Mauricio Dubon, Jake Myers, Alex Bregman, and John Singleton as my game stack, and there is value in playing, some of those guys. Obviously, there are paths to success, but you don't want it to be just like exclusively those guys, just so that you can pay for that game stack, right? But yeah, if you can get to any combination of like 3 of these 5 guys, and then anybody else from like 7 up in either lineup, I think you're doing all right there. With that, guys, a handful of you still here hanging out after 2 hours. You guys absolutely rock. No matter the slate size. Let's see if we can do 2 hours for like a 3-gamer tomorrow. Probably can. If you want short shows, check out our pal Ship My Money and his new show. I know he's knocking them out efficiently. We do it a little bit more long form here, like we do everything. But check out acemind.io, our good friends over at the Optimizer and Simulator site. Killer products. Very, very low pricing compared to everybody else in the industry. And it's not because the product is lacking for quality. It is just because these guys know how to do it right and know how to attract customers and know how to honestly correctly price their product for an industry where people are used to paying like, all right, I got $5-10 worth of entries in today. You don't really want to be paying $500 a month for your sim tool. These guys are a lot less expensive than that. They have product for MLB, NBA, NFL, MMA, PGA, on and on. Developing more every single day. Your first 3 days at AceMind are always free. If you use promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, 20% off your first month over there. I'm confident all you guys know that already. Everybody who's here hanging out for that long for this show probably already knows about AceMind, but got to keep on plugging those guys. I really like them. I really like the product and how helpful those guys are when, if you need something, it's just like right on it. So it's just a different experience than you get in a lot of places. It's what I'm looking for. It's what I'm trying to provide. With that, you guys rock. Let me go get stuff updated. Let's go Knicks tonight. Big game for them. I think it's just a single gamer on NBA. I didn't put projections up for it. Haven't been bothering with the single gamers, but let's go Knicks. Good luck to anybody playing that. Good Good luck to all you guys on this baseball slate. Somebody out there go win something. Let's take something down tonight, gang. What do you think? Be back tomorrow. Projections at the very least. I have to see what slates they attack, because it's like 3 games in the afternoon, 3 games at night kind of a day, and then the Yankees at 5 o'clock. So we'll see what the slate looks like as to whether there's a show. There will definitely be projections, usual content at the very worst, like we usually do for Getaway Day. With that, I will see you guys soon. Adios.